And joining me now to look at this issue of 2020 budget in the midst of this coronavirus spread is financial and management consultant and the CEO of Flame Academy Consulting, Mr. Oji Udemezue. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Always my pleasure. Thank you, Chimeze.
All right, we heard, I'm sure you heard the finance minister talk about the fact that they're going to do a mid-year review of 2020 budget. What do you expect to see?
Well, I expect that with the way things are going and the pandemic that's ravaging the world right now, Nigeria is going to have a very big revenue shortfall. I had actually also personally expected that we would not do the revenue target we set out to do, even if things were normal. So now it's clear that the oil price may not be as strong as we had wished or hoped it would be. Clearly, the revenue angle of our budget will suffer a big decline. And with businesses slowing down, things are not happening the way they expected. Raw materials are not being imported as planned. China is a big factory of the world, and most SMEs and companies are not going to post maybe great result in the next 1 year. Tax collection will also not be very interesting. So it's a double whammy. The oil price drop, and then the low tax collection. I expect that the revenue angle of our budget will suffer a big shortfall, and therefore it's possible that the government will have to do some adjustments in the budget, even if it's not officially done. But there's no way we can fully implement that budget looking at the amount of deficit we're going to end up with eventually. But what normally happens is that you find that the compulsory expenses, like the recurrent expenditure, particularly personnel costs, will always go above 2 trillion, 2.5 trillion. So that I see cannot be, you can't sack. It's not like a private entity where you can easily downsize or right size to manage your bills. So government will still have to shoulder that kind of expense, and then the obligatory debt service payment must have to happen. So what you see in the end is that, as usual, the capital spend may take a very big haircut, and in the midst of the huge infrastructure deficit that we have, that's going to be a big trouble for the economy. Looking at an economy that is running on a recovery and growth plan mode, where we see economic growth, trending at well below potential, at 2.1% or 2.27%. Nigeria needs to fast track above 3%, immediately to be able to move above the population growth rate. Because every day people are sliding into extreme poverty by the day, in thousands, in millions by the month.
Now, non-oil revenue, sources of government are still not strong despite all the rhetorics from fiscal, managers.
Yep.
Now, what ingenious ways can be deployed to improve this? And do you think this can salvage the current possible shock on the 2020 budget?
Now, to generate revenue, government should do just more than trying to collect more tax. The finance bill that just came out. We know that the oil revenue is a big issue. Nigeria has been sitting on that single risk factor for several decades, and we're not doing anything about it. Now the oil is taking a normal shape as it is now. So let's leave our oil for now. We know that Nigeria has been so somehow careless and foolish in the way we manage it. In risk management, it's not done. You are depending on a single source. A sector that does not contribute more than 10% to our GDP. The other 90%, you have not found an innovative way to make them count when it comes to foreign exchange earnings. So it's carelessness. We were singing a lot of songs about non-oil revenue generation,
and
economic diversification.
Mm-hmm.
So much about it when we had our recession in 2016. So much about anchor borrowing. So much about lending to the so much about tomato factories. So much about our rice production.
And all of
a sudden, the oil price firmed up again. Mm-hmm. And then we all went to sleep again. And then you had nothing. CBN is still doing something by the back, but even the one they are doing is not working because the lending framework they designed for anchor borrowing and all is hurting them. Most of those loans are not being paid back. So I think, giving solution to them, even the social welfare thing that we do, doling out money every month, is totally, riddled with a lot of corruption. Who are the people getting this money? What are they using the money for? What are we? Even the honorable minister has said we have to review this social welfare payment. Is it helping the economy? Who are getting this money? Are we having a list, churned out by politicians and getting, their stuff from there? So what we need to do is that amount of money. What I suggest clearly on that social welfare is block that wastage that hemorrhage. If you still want to spend that money judiciously, share it among different states. Set up a private public institution, like a finance house, kind of. You can use the existing microfinance banks or find a credible banking system, Bank of Agriculture, or any of them. Use them in all the states, establish offices for them in all the states, and let's have professional lenders who can, who are trained to look at SMEs and give these monies out, even if it's 15,000, 20,000 loans to people who do akara and all of those things. Let it build lives, not gifts. Use that to encourage small businesses. If you have, let's say, 5 billion in a state, it can go a lot if you're giving 50,000, 70,000, 100,000 loans to small businesses. Women who need to be empowered and all of that will make more impact that way in growing small businesses than just doling out money to people who don't know. And we're cooking for schools. Even the school program, the kind of thing that you see being doled out to these children, they're not things you want to feed your dog with. So let's stop that waste. It's not working. And we know that, and we don't want to make a change. So that has to happen. Then government must find a smart way to come back to agriculture. How can we bring our rice to the market? How can we achieve some level of self-sufficiency? Because if we do, the kind of thing we're seeing now, we will be a bit insulated from the shock. Now, China is not very active. China is on a lockdown. Factories are not working. So you can't get your raw materials, you can't get your finished products, and we are an import-dependent economy. So we still need to import. And when these products are not available, prices will shoot up. You can see what's happening to some basic things that we need, sanitizer and all of that, and other things that people need to bring in from China because they're not coming in. The little quantity they have, just simple economics. When supply is restricted and there's scarcity in the market, prices must always go up. And then added to the fact that Nigerians are generally very greedy and they want to make the worst of every situation, we always double prices and go for the kill. So now, if you cannot produce these things, we're importing rice, we're importing tomato, it gets worse for us. So government needs to find innovative way. Public sector cannot deal with these issues. Find a way to encourage the financial system, the commercial banks, the mortgage banks, the microfinance banks, and other lending institutions that you can license to get to the roots of it. Do proper credit risk analysis before we give out this money. Even central bank, they are curtailed by their staff strength. They can't do it. They keep trying to lend, but you find that they give out this loan, they're not able to monitor well or follow up. These loans just go bad.
No, you mentioned agriculture. Aside from agriculture, what about tourism?
Tourism is a major, but with the coronavirus, this is not the time to talk about tourism because the transport sector everywhere in the world, the aviation sector has taken a big shave. In fact, that sector is losing billions of dollars every day. So to drive tourism in a medium to long term is also a very good thing for us. But you can't do that in an economy that is shedding blood on a daily basis. People are scared to come into Nigeria. Those who are coming because they see opportunities around.
No, but there is domestic tourism.
There's domestic tourism. Even that is restricted, my sister. Are you aware that traveling from Lagos to Ibadan is as risky as traveling from Maiduguri to Abuja? People are not safe going anywhere anymore because these people we call, is it Kaduna to Abuja that you talk about? Either we call them bandits or we call them herdsmen or whatever name you call them. They are everywhere in this country. And we hear news of people carrying guns, entering the villages, slowly. And, the other day, people were killed in Delta. And the governor said as much as, that the military men accompanied this guy to kill some people in the community. It is that bad. And, talking about implementing the budget, nothing can ever work in an environment where we are shedding blood on a daily basis. Nigeria is doomed to fail if we continue the way we are going right now. Government should sit down in their neck and decide to deal with security issue, heads on.
Nigeria will not fail.
I'm just giving a warning because are you aware, Chimeze, that every day people are killed in tens? Previous day was 30, the other Kaduna 50. Again, a military man shot about 4 people. Every single day we are shedding blood in this country. How can we move forward? Who will hear those news outside the country and want to invest in here? We are locked down. We need to remove that cloud of insecurity from this economy. And it's a big issue. Unfortunately, nobody is held accountable. All the military, big shots are still holding their positions. No threat, no warning. What you see is award, promotions. In the midst of this failure to protect, even the House of, the National Assembly, they're agitating. They must know more than I do. And they know why they're saying these guys must resign. And nobody's saying anything about it, neither the CNC nor anybody.
Let's just hope
we are in a very big trouble if we continue this way. And when you combine insecurity problem with a threat of pandemic, it's more than a double whammy for this economy. And a budget cannot do so much under this environment. So So I advise the NEC to please be true to themselves. Let us face this security problem clearly. If we need assistance from other world bodies, let's ask for it right now. It is so bad. Every day, people are losing their life in this country. And we stay far off in Lagos and feel that it's not a big issue. Do you imagine that Nigerians like us sleep without being sure whether they wake up the next day? In a country that has military, we have police, we have paramilitary, and all kinds of things. It's horrible.
All right, let's get back to the issue of this budget. You did mention debt services. Of course, that remains uncontrollably high. Now, we had the IMF downgrade Nigeria's growth outlook. So how do you see the debt option source for funding for this budget? We heard the federal government talk about going to offer Eurobonds.
Now, I don't have a problem with borrowing. When nations need to come out of recession or need to grow the economy, there's always room to borrow. But the issue is, what are you borrowing for? And how are you deploying the borrowed funds to ensure that it's able to churn out or turn out some productivity that will enable you pay back your debt? If you go on just the borrowing spree without having a clear plan on how to employ the money to productive use to be able to pay back, then we are putting ourselves in much deeper hole. You heard about when the National Assembly was saying they will easily approve $29 billion for government to do one thing, where the last Senate did not allow that go through. And we've cried and said, what is the whole plan for this $29 billion? What are we going to use it for? What are the projects we will tie it to and monitor ourselves and be sure that it goes into there? You find that when these loans are taken, all sorts of monies are paid in consultancy and all kinds of things, and you find a lot of that going into rescuing states that are not viable, trying to deal with recurrent expenditure issues, salary payments, and then a little. We see quite a few projects going on, so I must commend the government. We see the Enugu-Port Harcourt road being done. We see the Lagos-Ibadan being fast-tracked. We see the Niger Bridge also getting some attention. These are commendable. But when you place that aside to how much you borrowed, you will actually get disappointed about what's going on in this country. So a lot needs to be done to ensure that the outcome of the borrowing is positive for this country, and it enables the economy to be able to pay itself back. Mind you, in every budget year, we spend nearly 55% of our actual revenue in debt service alone. That's a recipe for disaster. We must come out of it. Mind you, that the speculators have already put a cloud over our naira that there could be devaluation, even before the coronavirus thing. It's expected. Even central bank knows we have been bleeding. We have been on a hemorrhage stage in the past months. The external reserve has been going down constantly because we have been on this practice of trying to rescue the naira by injecting funds, preferring or using funds we are used to rescue the economy to rescue the naira. That's okay. We want to have a reasonable exchange rate in the economy. But at what cost is that happening? So government needs to do a lot to curtail expenditure. But there's so much. The other day, ICPC said we had about for $2 billion padding in budget, in personnel cost only. And we have so many of such stories in a country that is suffering to survive. We have, and now personnel cost is still going up. Thank God that they have put a deadline for all the agencies to comply with the IPPIS system. That's meant to curtail a lot of ghost worker, multiple payment to workers and all of that. Nigeria needs to do a lot to bring down its cost of running government. It's still a big issue because most of our spending is on personnel cost. You now have a lot others on other recurrent expenditure, and then very tiny. As of June 2019, we're only done about 300 billion. Was that 300 billion out of an expected 1.0 trillion? As at that time, prorated for the year, 300 billion, and that was even borrowed funds. You find that most times we talk about budget, here, what we intend to spend. Nobody takes time to review what was actually done. If you review 2018 budget, review 2019 budget, you find that recurrent expenditure is always done 100%, and capital expenditure we manage to do somewhere, less than 20%, 15% of what we plan to do, and we are still borrowing, in the midst of that.
That's the issue. So the question is, who monitors those implementation?
One, the issues we've had in the past have always been the time the budget was passed. You find a budget being passed sometime in May, and then releases may start quite late, and before you know, political issues, like now you can see our dear party, APC, back into some jungle in the politics. So that will also distract from, budget implementation. So we have had these issues repeatedly. So thankfully, His Excellency was able to pass the budget, sign the budget into a law by December
Right
17
on
last year. So quite on time. So we expect that capital releases would have to happen. But what are you releasing when you don't have the funds? You don't understand, Chimezie. We've planned to spend about 10.6 trillion naira. And we estimated that we will be able to generate about 8 trillion or thereabouts. My dear, we're not able to, even with the current, even with the time oil price was a bit high, we haven't been able to do up to 5 trillion in the past years. We always do about 4.something trillion. And then the way it is going now with the oil price benchmark now running well above the actual price of oil in the market, you find that the revenue will suffer some decline this quarter and next quarter. And the same thing will happen to some other, even the tax, revenue. So at the end of the day, you find a constraint where whatever little we're able to collect from FIRS, from customs, from the oil, earnings, will only enable government sustain regular payment of salaries, and little or nothing goes to infrastructure. Now we have had, plans to borrow, but IMF is no more very willing to lend to us until we do some basic
so that calls
reforms.
For question, the credit risk.
The credit risk is high.
Yeah.
We have been tagged a very risky country, a country very reluctant and unable to reform its economy. So much needs to be done. They are quarreling with the way our central bank is managing our external reserve vis-a-vis the currency management, having multiple windows, multiple exchange rates, which encourages bad behavior around tripping and all of that. It's real. Today, people buy USD at 306. Next second, they throw it in the market at 360, make a clean margin, and they stay drinking their coffee.
Well, a lot of people have questioned how far can the central bank go in, supporting the foreign exchange market, supporting the naira as it is now, and there's every likelihood that there might be a devaluation. Do you see that happening?
Now, no country leaves its currency to float freely in the market, whereby you have a free float. It's always a managed float. But Nigeria is not managing. Nigeria is fixing and holding, believing that someday the oil will go, that oil remains so high, we clear all the
but Nigeria does not have control of what happens in the oil market, do we?
We can't control. Even OPEC is having a big problem. The non-OPEC members like Russia, who have tried to help curtail output, Russia is hurting. They need money. In their argument recently, Russia is not anymore pro-cutting a shortfall, a supply cut. They need money. And other members are also finding a way to make more money for the economy. So now the sentiment is not so pro-supply cut. So you find that Nigeria is likely to be in danger in medium to long term because oil price may likely remain low. And U.S. has been pumping oil constantly in the past months. They have almost stabilized as a net exporter of oil, no more importing. China that normally consumes, they are now shut on lockdown. Demand for oil has plummeted seriously. And other factors are also coming up against the oil price. People are finding alternative sources of energy. It's a big issue, solar and all of that. So the use of oil, and most economies, have taken position knowing that oil cannot save us anymore. What they've started doing is to find alternatives. Nigeria has remained stuck in oil. Oil is that thing that has glued us together as a nation. If you remove the oil deal, this country is at that point where we've almost agreed that we can't stay together as a nation the way we're being led. Meanwhile, if we are led properly, this is a great nation waiting for the world to see. But with the way we're being led, it's clear to everybody, not south, east, west, that the way we're going with this fight over oil, that we can only last a little longer the way we're going. It's a danger. So what I see is that with this whole situation, we are going to get stuck with this budget. Because borrowing is not going to be coming any easy. In the fight to bring interest rate low in the economy, to enable SMEs and other people get money easily, we are trying to reduce rates on a number of market instruments. And with that, incentive to buy government instruments will not be there, except the window that has been given to foreign investors to come in and get at good rates. Otherwise, people have funds locked up with them. I mean, how do I put it? Funds that are a bit, stranded with them. You have lump sum to put it somewhere, but the rates are so low, you can't put it anywhere. You find that at the end of the day, you decide to either play stock market or some other business that you can't even do now with the economy being so slow. So it's a big issue. Lending is also a problem. Banks are going to face some increasing NPL in the face of coronavirus. So these are all challenges facing us. So the managers of this economy have to sit up and do things properly. Insecurity, and then providing containment for this virus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Udemezwe, for your thoughts there. Let's just hope that we get it right. Let's just hope that the government come up with right strategy to actually get this resolved.